Hey fam, welcome to Life More Abundantly, the podcast where we talk Black health like we talk everything else, real, out loud, and with love. I'm Dr. Eboni Haynes.
And I'm Dr. Tynisha Drennan. We've got a lot to talk about today, so let's get into today's episode.
Trump this week reposted something on Truth Social, Untruth Social, depicting the Obamas as apes. And so the story is that this video that he reposted was an election conspiracy video, and it ended with this depiction of the Obamas. Their heads are on the body of these characters. Mm-hmm. Right. These animated characters.
Right. Then they said it was from The Lion King.
Right. Yeah, no, I saw it. It is definitely not. So anyway, so he was on Air Force One, and the media, were questioning him about this particular video, and he doubled down. He was like, nope, I'm not going to apologize. I ain't doing anything wrong.
Right. So disrespectful. Mm-hmm. And, then he tried to pass the blame on his staff and all this kind of stuff, but never once said, right. Like you said, he just doubled down, which is what he does. Mm-hmm. Never once apologized, never once said it was disrespectful. And I am glad that a lot of congressmen were like, this is the most racist thing to ever come out the White House. Like, this is too much. And, this is a person who the whole free world is looking at. And he is just setting a horrible precedent and just embarrassing our nation. Yes, we do know that he's racist, and we know that the people, not all white people are racist, but as somebody said, everybody that voted for him is a racist, even the black and brown people, because you knew what he was about and you knew what he stood for. But just the disrespect and the ignorance to me, it's like, for the people who are defending him and it, we know in the United States culture that Black people have been correlated with monkeys and apes. No one in this country lives under a rock where they don't know that is a racist comparison. And to do that not only to a former president, a person who has held the highest office, it wouldn't be okay for anyone, but for a person who has held the highest position in the country, who has really lived a life devoid of scandal and public scrutiny, because that's what I think the better word is scandal, because certainly they have been scrutinized, but they've lived a life free of scandal. They have held themselves with the utmost respect. There is very little that we can critique about their public lifestyle or service to the United States. They still not listed in anything, including the Epstein files.
The Epstein files.
Okay, can tell you whose name not in it. And, for all of the United States not to come together and be like, you can't do this. It's very disappointing, even though we know what this nation is, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
This is a deep-seated thing that Trump has not recognized. The people around Trump refuse to recognize. And it's almost like, well, if he says that he's not racist, which he has done, right? Because during his debate with Biden, you remember he said that he's done more for Black people in America than anyone except for possibly Abraham Lincoln. I mean, come on, really? And then he went further to say that he was the least racist person in the room.
Right.
Seriously. And so what I feel like we are seeing is that the Republicans and his sycophants are just like, okay, well, just go by what he says, right? He didn't say anything on this tweet. He reposted it, but it's not just about what you say. It's about how you act. It's about how you carry yourself. And we do get these glimpses that are just clearly racist. And so can we finally just call a thing, like Ayanna Van Zant would say, right?
Right.
Call a thing a thing. If you have all of these examples, you had the full page ad in the newspaper, right?
Ask those young men, is he racist?
Is he racist? Right? Clearly, he is racist. And
for the people that couldn't get into any of his buildings despite having the money.
That part. right? Let's talk about all of the HUD investigations that happened because he was, discriminating against people. So
Let's talk about asking a presidential candidate who was born in Hawaii for his birth certificate.
right, right. Because you don't realize that Hawaii is part of the US.
Or
Okay.
Puerto Rico, but we want to get
Or
to that
Puerto
in a
Rico.
second.
Oh.
Yeah. None of the islands. It's not attached. It's not
Ooh.
United States. Okay.
I think I need him to go back and have several history lessons
Several
because
history, civic, social studies, any of the
US
things that we
history,
had
like seriously,
from
sir?
elementary
Okay.
school on. Like, yes,
Yeah.
it's very disgraceful. And another thing that came to mind when you were just talking about calling a thing a thing, there are so many entertainers who have been held accountable or
Mm-hmm.
lost their positions for saying
Correct.
and doing less. Not that it was not equally harmful, but to me, this is just such an extreme depiction because it's actually a
Mm-hmm.
pictorial depiction. And
Mm-hmm.
there's no accountability for the White House making these types of comments, images, so forth and so on that he continues to do.
Yes. And speaking of people who have been held accountable for their racist actions, just last week, Nicole Curtis,
Yep.
who is the host of HGTV's show Rehab Addict,
Yeah.
got her show canceled
Yeah.
because she used the N-word.
And it was so weird because I saw that clip and she was saying it like, oh snap, like I have never once used that phraseology when I hit my hand or broke something. Like, who
Mm-hmm.
came up with that phrase? No,
Mm-hmm.
like you need to be canceled not only because you used it, but because you used it in a silly way.
Right.
Like just an odd way. So I think she wanted to pass because she didn't call nobody that. But the fact that it was part of your framework is the problem. Like, it could
Yes.
come out. And I saw a video on social media the other day, and the caption was, "Would you miss your flight to watch a fight?" Right? And so this
That's
lady,
catchy.
right? So this particular woman was at Southwest Airlines, and she was giving
Mm-hmm.
the business to a black agent at the check-in, and the young lady turned to her white counterpart and asked her to handle it. And when the white counterpart saw how diabolical her language and her behavior was, she was like, "We're not going to help you at all," and walked off. And of course, Karen started crying and was saying, "My kids need to get where they're going, blah, blah, blah."
Mm-hmm. Should
And
have thought about that
then,
before.
right. And then when nobody responded to her, not only did she call her white counterpart a word that is used by those people to describe our vaginal parts, she also used the N-word to the black woman. And I was just like,
Oh yeah. You don't deserve to be helped.
you don't deserve to be helped. You deserve to be on a no-fly list.
Absolutely.
And you deserve whoever recorded this social media video to repost it, and you have accountability in your workspaces and wherever else as well. Because,
Mm-hmm.
as I've said before, some things, races or not, should be at your kitchen table. These are not the things that you say in public, and you certainly don't say them to people and think that there are no consequences. So, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what I hate about this administration. If no consequences were a person, it's definitely Donald Trump from his
Right.
election being a 34 count convicted felon. He's a felon. This ain't
Mm-hmm.
even misdemeanor. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you all haven't read the book by his niece, you really should check it out because then it gives you a really good understanding of who this man is if you haven't already figured it out. But
got you. Okay.
yes, but I do applaud HGTV for taking some action. I will be the first to tell you that I can write a letter in a heartbeat. I can shoot an email. If something upsets me, I
Yes.
will send it.
Miss
I
the
have
bylaws.
heard of bylaws. Yes, that
Yeah.
is me. I embrace that. But I have reached out to HGTV because there are some shows, one in particular that they have where you rarely see the host of the show use a black real estate agent to help him find listings for lottery winners. And so that pains me. You are traveling all across the country, connecting with these lottery winners and trying to help them find a home. There are no Black real estate agents in any of these cities, and every real estate agent that you use is not a person of color. I have a big problem with that. So I don't even watch the show anymore. I can't.
That is a good point. And I've watched a couple of HGTV shows and have been like, dang, they don't never have a Black contractor.
Mm. And they canceled Egypt Sherrod's show
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about.
recently, right?
Yeah.
And literally they canceled it right before they received an award for the show. So anyway, I'm just too through with HGTV right now. But I'm glad that they are taking steps in addressing bad behavior by the talent that they have on their shows. But I definitely want to get back to Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico,
So
yes.
yes. So I'm sure you watched the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yes, and I hope our listeners watched it too. If nothing else, but
Yes.
for the culture, they still
It
part of
was
our culture.
amazing.
For
That's
our
right.
culture.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I did have a chance to watch the Super Bowl halftime show, and musically and visually, I thought the show was excellent. And plus it was produced by Rock Nation. So so you knew it was going to be on point. But I got very upset about people saying, you know, we need to make sure that our Super Bowl halftime entertainment are American. Well,
Right. When there was a list, there's a list. Rihanna,
yes,
YouTube,
right.
Phil Collins,
Coldplay.
Coldplay. Like, come on, man.
Exactly. Shania Twain, right?
And it's not even the first Puerto Rican artist because J-Lo performed. Shakira has performed. Well, she performed with J-Lo,
Well,
but
she's
still.
Colombian, but
Right.
still, we've embraced them.
We've embraced them. Yes.
Phil Collins, he ain't American.
Right.
So yeah, there are lots of artists who are not American who have performed the Super Bowl halftime shows. And so, you know, for there to be calls from lawmakers and others, you know, this conversation really should not have been elevated to the point where it is.
Absolutely. Because first and foremost, it is an entertainment moment. Yes, there were significant cultural messages, but at the end, literally, it was, you know, love conquers hate. That was the message.
Right.
And so I don't understand why our political leaders are even talking about this. That's obscene to me. Like, you have so many other things, including the Epstein files, sorry, but there are so many other things besides the Epstein files that our government needs to be working on. And so you should not be giving your time, effort, and public conversation, including Donald J. Trump, to the Super Bowl halftime show. Like, I really don't want to hear your opinion on the Super Bowl halftime show. Like, you're not even music savants. Stop it.
What makes them really upset is the fact that the halftime show, not only was it done almost completely in Spanish, right? Which is what the number one reason I think they're really mad. But two, the halftime show had political messages in it. I mean, everything is political. Let's just be real. Like, everything that we do in our country has a political connection.
Absolutely.
And so I think, you know, the fact that Bad Bunny brought in the electrical poles right? Because remember, I think it was 2017, Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico.
6 months.
Exactly. And exactly. And so when Hurricane Maria hit, you know, it left the island with no telephone service, the longest power outage in US history, thousands of deaths, people couldn't get food or water, lots of flooding.
And Donald J. Trump threw them paper towel rolls.
Them paper towels. Correct. I'm surprised they didn't have paper towels in that halftime show. I was waiting for it.
Need a football field. Gotta be white enough for y'all. That's white.
Exactly. And so for Bad Bunny to do those two things, and then I love the fact he had his full government name in the opening scene. And then actually I pulled the English lyrics of his show, and he says his name
He wouldn't
again.
have been there.
And I just love that, because it's like, I am here and I am standing on business, 10 toes down. I'm standing up for my people. I'm speaking up for my people. My people are proud of me, and my people are American people. And no matter what you try to do to erase us from history, no matter whether you allow us representation, and we talked about that at the beginning of the month, right?
Sure.
The fact that Puerto Rico is one of those territories that doesn't have real meaningful representation in Congress, although the majority of their population is American.
They pay the highest taxes or something like that too.
Import taxes especially, right? Puerto Rico continues to get the short end of the stick.
They do. And I would even include in that, well, we're talking about Bad Bunny and I want to swing it back, but I do want to acknowledge St. John, St. Thomas, and St. Croix could be lumped in that as well, because they are part of the United States. And the import tax, the government federal assistance, all of those things are very destitute in those islands. Hawaii has a great revenue because of tourism, which the other islands have tourism as well. But when the volcano exploded in Hawaii, they didn't get a lot of federal assistance either. So it's like, okay, if you're on an island, then you don't get the same respect, representation in government, so forth and so on. And it's like, why not? You pay taxes too, yes. But overall, to me, what was upsetting was the ignorance, to keep saying that Bad Bunny is not American, which, I hate when we use American and the United States interchangeably, because America's continent, North and South America. But we are part of the United States, and Puerto Rico is part of the United States. And so, even now, government is calling for him to be deported. Where are you going to be deported to? Like, where you want to send him? Or
America.
Or you want to capture him and send, still in America. Or where you want to drop him off in Venezuela, like you've been doing other people where that's not where they're from. He's from Puerto Rico. He's a United States citizen. His passport says United States. His birth certificate says United States citizen. And so just the ignorant of people in high positions and people who have public platforms to just be spewing ignorance like this, I feel like contributes to us being the laughing stock of the world.
Absolutely. And so even our people need to be a lot more educated on that, right? Find out, just pull up a map of the United States of America. Take the time to pull up all of the U.S. territories and name them so that you know that these places exist. I have actually had the opportunity to meet people from the Northern Mariana Islands. Before I went to a conference and engaged with individuals from there, I didn't know anything about the Mariana Islands. And so now that I've had opportunities to engage with people, it makes me more cognizant of the fact that the policies and the actions of the United States should not just be focused on the states, that there are people in the territories that we don't know about, the territories that we don't talk about every day. Those people feel impacts way differently than we do. And so often we don't take them into consideration and really understand how they really bear a terrible burden. We think we have it bad, but they got it way worse.
Absolutely. And we're still talking about Black and brown people. So, the civil rights movement initially was about being equal but separate. And then we decided integration would be better. And we could have a show about the pros and cons of integration. But at the end of the day, we're just underserved, and we're still paying tax dollars, federal and state taxes.
And local. You could be paying local and city taxes.
We're paying income taxes. We're paying cities. We're paying municipal taxes. We're paying, home taxes, on Snickers bar, all of this stuff. And we are not equally supported or represented. And I think that there needs to be a new movement that seriously addresses that, especially in government, like you're saying, where we're not represented. And then when we finally do have somebody go, they don't get invited to the White House for the governor's dinner, and there's only one Black governor, or they get cut off when they're making their remark. It's just, Girl, you done made me mad and depressed at the same time. Like, how long? How long? How long, oh Lord? How long?
Yes. Oh my
So
goodness.
yes, I'm really bothered by the ignorance of it all. Oh, and another thing, when you were talking about looking at a map, I had to tell someone the difference between us, Black United States citizens, and Puerto Ricans and St. Thomas St. Croix, this island that you're talking about, Haiti, it's just where the slave ship stopped. And so even our people who are like, oh, we don't get the, hey, they're still our people. The only difference between us and them is where the slave ship stopped. If you had stayed on that, if great grandmama had stayed on that ship a little bit longer, we would be saying "Coma está" too. Like,
That's right.
you like know your history.
And that's one of the reasons why I love Henry Louis Gates' show, Finding Your Roots, because he and his team dig and dig and dig for people who are all shades, all races, and there's always this situation where someone is surprised to find out that their relative is African and they thought that their lineage was just straight European or whatever. And they find out that they have African roots, or they find out that they have South American roots. So I just love watching his show, especially so people realize that we are really connected.
We are.
More than people want to acknowledge.
Absolutely.
But we truly are connected. We're one people. So you might as well just go on and appreciate that.
I mean, historically, biblically, you can see that. You can see the integration of different nations. And so back to the ignorance, how you can really feel that one person is lesser because of the shade of their skin. It's just mind blowing to me because, like you said, we are all integrated. Everybody came from somewhere. United States is historically known as the melting pot, because people came from everywhere and blended in the culture. And you think they just did it financially? No, they did it sexually and culturally, just like in the Bible when we see the Greeks and the Romans and all of that. So
yeah, y'all. So stop trying to send Bad Bunny somewhere. He home. This is home for him. And I would encourage everybody, if you have not had an opportunity, to check out the translated lyrics. They're a little racy now. I will tell
Not
you
racist.
Not racist, racy.
Yeah.
So just beware, but we'll post a link to a website that has the translation of his show there for you. One of the things that I absolutely loved was the fact that throughout his show, he is showing that he appreciates his culture and that everyone else should appreciate their culture. And so there was just this loving, beautiful celebration of Puerto Rican culture and a desire, like you said, for us to recognize, and this is what he had on the jumbotrons at the end of the show, the only thing more powerful than hate is love.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
Good talk. What's up next, Ed?
It is still Black History Month, so we are going to
Black History Month. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's right. So we're going to share with you what's happening on this day in Black history. On this day in Black history, there were several birthdays. So we talked about Marian Anderson, I think a few shows ago, right? Did we? Or did I make that up? All right. Well, maybe I made it up. But anyway,
she's from Philadelphia, where I'm from. Okay, go ahead.
So Marian Anderson was born on this day in 1902. And for those of you who don't know, Marian Anderson was an opera singer, and she definitely is a huge figure in the civil rights movement and in Black history. So on this day in 1902, Marian Anderson was born. And in 1942, the Black Panther Party's founder, Huey P. Newton, was born. And so we definitely had to bring this up. Absolutely. So he and his college classmate, if you didn't know, Bobby Seale, formed the Black Panther Party in 1966. And and you should know this, but if you don't, the Black Panther Party is a Black power and largely economic justice advocacy organization that has been villainized through the years, but they very much are still alive
It
today,
is.
doing
And
good work in the communities
I
where they are.
don't have the footnote for this, but
Hmm.
I believe it's factual that the Black Panthers actually started the WIC program, the Women and Children's Program, and it was taken over by the government, and
Hmm.
people largely don't know that that was something that
Yeah.
was started in our community.
Several of their community service efforts have been usurped by other organizations like the
Mhm.
federal government. So, yeah, what would become later the school food service program, that was something that the Black Panthers were doing for the community, making sure that women and babies had access to health care, formula, and that
Mhm.
kind of thing. They were doing those things before the government had an interest in making sure that brown people or poor people were really cared for.
Right. The government often usurps many things that Black people have done. I personally would
Mm.
like to see a resurgence of that, especially now when the economy is so bad, where a lot of people are barely making it, but they're making like $1 too much to even be able to sustain themselves. And so I wish there were a lot more community organizations like the Black Panthers who would be able to um, research those programs by us for us. And then another thing that I've been thinking about is that the Black Panthers, as you said, are often villainized. And when they're talked about, it's about them being against government agency and violence, and they're depicted in such a negative connotation. But when we, as people of color, talk about the Black Panthers, I think we also need to highlight the many, many good things that they did in community, especially for standing up for us.
Absolutely. And I am so glad you brought that up. I actually just bought a book. It speaks to the work of the Black Panther Party as it relates to
Mm,
healthcare and
mm,
health promotion and that kind of thing. So yeah, so we're going to talk about that because I think that it's
yeah,
important for our folks to really understand how the Black Panther Party was hugely beneficial, not just with the services that they were providing, but also in terms of driving a political agenda, driving the push for policies
mhm,
that we still benefit from today that people
absolutely.
don't give them credit for. So thank you for bringing that up. All right, let's see. Inventions. On this day in 1891, Black inventor Albert C. Richardson received a patent for a new and improved butter churn, which made it more efficient, and it created a mechanized way of producing butter, which revolutionized the food industry. So thank you to Albert Richardson for his invention. And
Yeah,
Black folks love some
we
butter.
love some butter.
Yes. And then finally, on this day in 1973, the Navy warship, the USS Jesse Leroy Brown, you know he was Black, is the first ship named after an African American. Brown was the first African American naval aviator to be killed in combat in the Korean War.
Hmm, that's a good fact
Yeah,
to know.
yeah, for sure.
Thank you for
So,
that. Okay.
mhm,
This is why it's important that we bring it up here on this platform, and people who have platforms, or even in your own home, you have to educate ourselves and educate our own people because they're not telling us
mhm,
in other
absolutely.
spaces.
Yeah, and the kids today are definitely not getting it in school because some school districts too busy fighting over whether we're gonna teach the Ten Commandments. But that's another
Right.
story.
That's another story.
I know that this is near and dear to your heart, T. So, National Caregivers Day is always on the third Friday of February. So, it's coming up, and we wanted to make sure that you all had really good information as it relates to caregiving. And this really does link to our episode from last week
It
when we were
does.
talking to
It
Dr. Epps,
does.
right? She talked a lot about how you can make sure that you are taking care of yourself
Absolutely.
as a caregiver
Absolutely.
for someone with dementia. But I think that it's important for us to, recognize that caregivers provide care to lots of different
Absolutely.
people. So, T, you want to, maybe share with us what it means to be a caregiver or how we define caregivers?
Absolutely. There is a distinction, or there can be a distinction between paid caregivers and non-paid caregivers, right? The majority of us are non-paid caregivers, meaning that we just do what needs to be done to take care of our family. We take care of our mom, our dad, our aunties. Sometimes we got to take care of our siblings' kids. Like, we're caregivers in the sense that we're just doing what needs to be done to make sure that our family, our friends are good. Often it happens suddenly, like one diagnosis, one fall, one phone call changes everything. You're
That's
going
right.
about your life, and then all of a sudden everything changes, and you're a caregiver. Caregiver is really taking on somebody else's life to a degree, right? It may be financial, it may be physically, you have to take care of them, it may be a change in living status, that you become a caregiver and have to make decisions not just for yourself and others. But it's not just the role, right? It's relationship. So it can change the dynamic of your relationship as well. Most caregivers didn't apply or volunteer for the
Right.
job. It just fell on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we embrace it. I think it's safe to say, especially in Black and brown communities, yeah, we take on that role in our homes more than I think other people. And there are facilities out there. And I do want to say we're going to go through the tolls that it takes. But I want to say up front, if you cannot take care of your loved one in your home, there is no shame in that.
That's right.
There's no shame in utilizing a facility. There's no shame in utilizing a service. The fact that you are still trying to provide them with the best care possible, you're still a caregiver. You're still doing an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any thoughts on that?
I was really surprised by how many people are caregiving and what the demographics are. So largely, unsurprisingly, right, most caregivers are women. And then who are people who are caregivers caring for? Mostly their parents, right? 42% of caregivers are caring for a parent. Most of the time they're caring for their mothers. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that women tend to live longer, right? 40 million caregivers are providing care to adults age 18 and over, or those with a disability or other illnesses. So
yeah,
that's a lot of folks.
So I want to talk about the emotional weight of being a caregiver, right? There's something called anticipatory grief, or living grief. And people think of grief only as when people have died, right? That we experience grief. But you can grieve that the person you're taking care of is not the person that you knew. You can grieve the person you're taking care of. For instance, a child that has additional needs is not what you expected it to be, right? What you had hoped and dreamed of. You can grieve your life is not what you had hoped and dreamed it would be. You can grieve your loss of independence. Now you've got to make arrangements for other people. You can't just move and do you the way that you're accustomed to. You can grieve the fact that your space is now shared with someone else, and they do things their way and you do things your way, and you're trying to live in harmony in a space. I want to say guilt sometimes, a lot of times, comes up. Am I doing enough? Am I being selfish for having these thoughts of wishing, hoping, praying that it was different, or that it was different, or that it could be different, that some change comes? And so guilt creeps in.
And maybe even guilt for taking the time out for yourself to go and engage in self-care.
Absolutely.
There are people who feel guilty about leaving the person
Yes.
they're caring for at home.
Sometimes people feel guilty of, like, should I be tired? Should I be annoyed? Should I have snapped? Well, you're a human being. And so those are all natural life effects that happen.
Right.
And so you're still a human, even though you're doing something else. I want to let our listeners know that love and resentment can coexist. And that doesn't make you a bad person. You could resent the situation. You could resent, especially with parents, them not having made the appropriate preparations for their senior life the same way that we do. And there are reasons. Some of it is ignorance, and some of it is just the expectation that their children would take care of them. And so you can resent that as well, and still love the person and still be willing to take care of them, but still be frustrated by the circumstances. And that does not make you a bad person.
That's good.
Yeah.
One of the things that you said in terms of feeling resentful because your loved one did not prepare.
Mm-hmm.
And there are lots of reasons for parents not preparing because we have such a wide wealth gap in the Black community
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
contributes a lot to it. So we don't tend to retire with the same level of wealth
Yeah,
as the majority
for
population,
sure.
right? And we don't often have those necessary conversations like Dr. Fayron was talking about last week
Yes,
in terms of having conversations
especially
with
about
your loved ones
finances. Mm-hmm.
about finances, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even just preparing for retirement
Mm-hmm.
and what comes next
Mm-hmm.
and what would happen if you need long-term care.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like and who's
Living
going to
wills.
pay for
Mm-hmm.
it? And so all of those things we don't talk about often
Mm-hmm.
within our communities. And so we definitely need to change that because it's not until we start having those uncomfortable conversations that we can start doing that care planning
Mm-hmm.
earlier
Mm-hmm.
so that our families as a whole
Yes,
can live life more abundantly.
more abundantly, right.
That's right. In their senior years, through an illness,
Mm-hmm.
through a
Mm-hmm.
long term illness.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we definitely need to encourage our listeners to, if you haven't already started having those conversations with your parents, you need to have them. It's not too early to start having those conversations.
Absolutely. It's never too early to make
Mm-hmm.
sure what is the financial situation, making sure you know if they have insurance, where those
Mm-hmm.
insurance documents are, what it covers, all those types of things, advanced directives, living wills.
Mm-hmm.
These are conversations that are difficult for people to have, but are necessary. I encourage everybody to get long term care insurance, right? It can be a derivative of your life insurance or it can be a separate policy. And long term care insurance helps you either have care in your home or pay for assisted living, those types of things so that you're prepared when something happens, right? All of us want to be moving and shaking and dancing and driving in our
Mm-hmm.
90s, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people it doesn't happen like that for, and that's why we have insurance on the just
Mm-hmm.
in case. And so yeah, doing all those things to be as prepared as possible. I also want to mention that a lot of us, and I've talked about this before, have coverage that we don't utilize. So for
Mm-hmm.
instance, in my job, God forbid, knock on wood, I get cancer. There's a lump sum of money for that. There's accident insurance if I'm
Mm-hmm.
dismembered, even if I just lose a finger, God forbid, knock on wood. And so just saying those types of things that we need to even ask now, if our parents are still working, do you
Mm-hmm.
have any type of coverage that I should be aware of if something happens? Because we can utilize that. Now, is it all compassing for their entire life? No, but at least it's something that we're not
Mm-hmm.
leaving on the table. Is the point I want to make
Yeah.
about that.
And I think we also need to check with our life insurance agents to
Mm-hmm.
find out if our policies have any provisions should we be diagnosed with a terminal illness.
Mm-hmm.
Some policies do have some language in there that says if you're diagnosed, then you can take out X percentage of your
Absolutely. Yep.
policy so that you can handle whatever end of life, type activities that you
Mm-hmm.
feel like you want to handle before that time comes. So those conversations are, yes, very difficult, but necessary to make sure that you are leaving your caregivers or putting your caregivers in the best possible situation. Should you need long-term care? Should you need to move into a facility? Should you need to move into a loved one's house?
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that it's important to have conversations about, well, what is our day-to-day going to look like if you
Absolutely.
move in?
Absolutely.
If you have those conversations earlier,
Sure.
then if something like that should happen, because you never know what might happen when
Right.
you
Right. From day to
walk
day.
out of the house. Exactly.
Absolutely.
But if you have those conversations early and something should happen, at least you can be on the same page about what caregiving looks like
Sure.
and not have to have that conversation during the crisis.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. And I think vice versa. I work in hospice, and recently I have seen a great deal of people having to become caregivers for their adult children. because
Mm.
something happened. And so having that two-way conversation. You and I have children, but there are many people who don't have children. So if something happens to them, of course, their parents become not only their primary caregivers, but also decision makers by law,
Right.
unless you have a living will or a power of attorney that designates someone else. So even that
Mhm.
conversation, making sure, you know, you have an executor of your estate or a power of attorney or a healthcare power of attorney, all these things are very necessary if something should happen. But I love that you're saying having conversations of what that would look like if you're able to. And I will say, in my experience, again, in hospice, there are sometimes, you know, 8 people and they all chip in, they all rotate, they all work together. And sometimes it's 8 people and one person does it all. But being able to have those conversations beforehand, I think eases some of the resentment that caregivers may feel in the long run.
Mhm. And there are policies. I think some people think, oh, well, I've waited till my loved one is 70 to try to get a policy or 80 years old. So nobody's going to, write an insurance policy. Or if they do, it's going to be expensive. There are policies out there
Mhm.
for your older loved ones where it's not incredibly expensive for you to get a policy. So I would encourage you all to not just say, oh, there's not going to be a policy out there that I can find that's affordable. Call a trusted insurance agent. You might know somebody at your church who's an insurance agent. Call them. If
Do
you
your
have someone in the
research.
family, right, they can refer you to somebody
Yeah.
who will give you good information and can help you get a policy on you or your loved one that is something that you can afford, but ensures that that's not one extra burden to your family.
Absolutely. So we've already touched on, you know, identity loss a little bit, so I won't go back over that. We've talked about financial strain in a roundabout way, but if your loved one is not able to be financially self-sustaining, you do need to figure out, you know, out-of-pocket medical costs, navigating insurance, disability, social security, FMLA, you know, and all of that can be very overwhelming. And so,
Mhm.
just want to remind people, as you're saying, not only to do your research, which can be hard to do when you're in the thick of it, but ask for help. You know,
Mhm.
as friends and family, can you research how we do this stuff? Are you able to make the call? Are you able to set up the appointment? Those types of things to help you navigate. Because unfortunately, there is a lot of red tape in applying for the
Mhm.
benefits that someone needs.
For sure. And I'll just, put a plug in as a reminder of something that we talked about last week. We do have area agencies on aging
Mhm,
who can be a huge resource to you all,
mhm,
especially for, aging parents or aging loved
mhm.
ones. But they also can provide, information on all of these resources that might
Yes.
exist within your community, even if, let's say, the person isn't aging necessarily, but maybe they have a traumatic brain injury.
Mhm.
And so, you might also be able to tap into some resources that they can refer you to, just by making the phone call. If you're in the Atlanta area, there are tons of people I know personally who do this work. They
Mhm,
connect people to resources.
mhm.
So if you're in the Atlanta area, you can definitely shoot us an email and we'll make sure that you get connected to some of those folks. But yeah,
Sure.
we'll make sure we put the link in the show notes to some of the resources that we discussed last week.
Absolutely. And some other resources are the
Mm-hmm.
FCA, which is Family Caregiving Alliance. These are national resources. AARP has a Caring Resource Center, which I'm an AARP member. I didn't even know that. National Alliance for Caregiving. And then there's an Elder Locator. And then there are specific supports that are available as well for, you know, maybe a disease process like cancer or Parkinson's
Mm-hmm.
or Alzheimer's, things like that. You know, there are caregiver support groups out there, in person or virtual, that you might want to take advantage of. You know, I'm an advocate for counseling and or pastoral care.
Mm-hmm.
And the structure of your life may change, that maybe you need Jesus therapy and medicine. And
Mm-hmm.
so don't be opposed to that, oh, I've been fine all my life. Well, you know, the circumstances of your life have changed. So keeping that in mind. There are
Mm-hmm.
also resources for adults, right? If we have, well, even for children, there are respite programs available. There are
Mm-hmm.
home health agencies. And if your loved one, you know, is, and this is an underutilized resource in our communities, hospice. Hospice doesn't mean that you're dying tomorrow, but it can be a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful resource for additional support medically, emotionally, physically, all of those types of things. And
Mm-hmm.
equipment wise, because they also provide equipment. And so sometimes we can't afford equipment such as an oxygen machine or a hospital bed, a bedside commode, right? These types of things a lot of people buy out of pocket, diapers, things like that, that will just be like, oh, I just got to buy it because I got to do what I got to do. Well, maybe your loved one qualifies for a service that can help you with those expenses as well.
That's good to know. Okay.
Oh, I do want to talk about emotional meanings. I'll just say this, that caregiving can be an act of service. And so even showing up for a friend and saying, hey, I know that you're overwhelmed. Can I take your kid for a couple hours? Can I sit with mom while you go out and get lunch or dinner, or, have a date night or something like that? So that is caregiving support in and of itself. To remember that it's okay for you to rest, for you to take a break. Like we talked about, sometimes you can feel guilty about doing something for yourself, but accepting help and taking care of yourself are paramount, right? We know the adage that you cannot pour from an empty cup. So you have to refill yourself. You're allowed to complain. You're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to be frustrated.
You're allowed to
be
vent.
tired. You're allowed to vent. And that doesn't mean that you're not doing a good job. So applause, applause, applause. I wish we had the applause button for all the people who are out there being caregivers. Thank you. That's my soapbox.
See, y'all, I told you she had a wealth of information to share on this topic. And so, Tia, I just want to say thank you for all you do, because you do care for a lot of people in your work as well as at home. And so, I just applaud you for how you show up for everyone. And you do it oftentimes without complaining. It's amazing the type of work that you do, and it definitely takes a special kind of person to work in some of the spaces where you work. And so you are, I think, the best person to talk about topics related to caregiving. So for those of you who are listening, please make sure that you take all of these nuggets and you use them, you put them into practice, you file them away for the time where you may need to use them or share them with someone else. So T, thank you for sharing.
Thank you for your support of me as a caregiver. It's very important that you show up, and sometimes you take my kids, and I appreciate that.
I love your kids. Yes.
The grown one and the little one. Okay, sorry.
I'm not saying that because I want your mama calling me afterwards, after she listens to this episode.
She will.
All right. So what is on tap for the herbal tea? All right, so the herbal tea segment is an opportunity for us to talk about what other people are gossiping about and offer up something that is beneficial to our community. Y'all know we call this healthier gossip.
So we make it healthy.
We try to make it healthier. All right, so what are we gossiping about? I mean, what are we pouring tea about today?
Yes. So I think at the top of my list anyway is this dispute with Glorilla. So rapper Glorilla and her sister have been beefing in social media. I think her sister's really been beefing. And the complaint is that now that Glorilla is famous and making millions of dollars, that she should be supporting her entire family. Not just her mama, not just her daddy, but her entire family, her siblings, her nieces, her cousins, all the people who was in the struggle with her before she became famous. And that sparked a lot of debate. Social media, radio shows, television shows. Is it fundamentally necessary for you to take care of everybody in your circle when you put in the work and make it? And I want to say Glorilla is allegedly worth millions of dollars, right? But I think that, especially in Black and brown communities, I think that we need to have a discussion as well, how that affects people who make it, period, right? Our predecessors think if you made $70,000 a year, you doing something, right? Not understanding the cost of living increase and so forth and so on. So what do you think about that?
Ooh, I have lots of thoughts about that. I think that it is very easy for family members and friends and others to see someone that they know who's made it, who's come up maybe out of poverty, who's gotten to a point now where they are rolling in dough, at least from their perspective, and say, we've been riding with you this whole time. And so, yeah, you need to take care of us. And in a sense, I get that. I can see why family members might feel that way. On the other hand, though, there have been so many examples of Black folks who have made it in sports or entertainment, and they have tried to take care of everybody, and then they find themselves being broke, being in foreclosure on their homes, having to file bankruptcy because they have tried to take care of everyone. And they did not, like I always used to tell my kids, they didn't take care of number one first.
Right.
And you are number one. I think that her sister probably, and I don't know the whole story, but I do feel like probably the sister is being a little bit more selfish in this situation and not seeing the bigger picture and not seeing the greater impact that Glorilla can make, not only in her family's life, but also in the life of the community, her personal life, if she takes the money that she would be spending on her family members. And let's just be real, a lot of times our family members just go out and they just spend, right? They're not investing money into real estate or anything that appreciates.
One of her sister's chief complaints is it's embarrassing that she's driving an Altima and Glorilla has all this money.
At least you driving, boo.
Right. And what's wrong with Altima? Who said that?
What is wrong with the
That's
Altima?
second in line on the Nissan line.
You're probably gonna get at least 300,000 miles out of that car. Yeah. And so, if Glorilla takes the money that she would have given to loved ones who are just going to blow it more than likely, and she invested in things that are going to extend the life of her money, that for me is the better way to go. And the other thing is, let's just be real, more than likely Glorilla is paying for all of her family members to go out. When they go out, who paying for dinner? Right. Who's, making sure that the niece and nephew have a phenomenal birthday party? Who's probably doing all of that? It's probably Glo. So, she is investing into you. It's just not an investment like you want it.
Well,
so
I think the key word you're saying is investing, right? Because there are two issues. As you said, it's not investing to help you make your own stream of income. Right. If there was an investment in that type of way, or your education, or something that's productive, right? You just want to be able to be out here and ball, floss, like I'm flossing and balling, but you're not doing anything to get to that point. I would have more respect to ask for a job, you know what I mean? To be something around the team and collect a check that way. I would have more respect for that type of thing. But secondly, even if I'm contributing to you balling, flossing, whatever you want to call it, I think you should not have the expectation to do what I do, to live where I live. You know what I mean? Like if you live, in Sandy Springs and I live in Buckhead, you shouldn't expect, you know what I mean? You shouldn't expect a 10-bedroom mansion. Like it's only you. Can you take care of this 2-bedroom house or 2-bedroom condo? Can I set you up that way? Like, why do you feel like you deserve to have what I have? You don't want to drive your Altima because I'm driving a Mercedes or Maserati or whatever I'm driving. You're not working like I'm working. Like you said, be appreciative that maybe I paid off your Altima.
Right.
You ain't got a car note. So you could borrow on that extra money that you was using for a car note. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's important as well. And I think that applies to all economic class brackets. You know what I mean? If I'm taking care of family members and then I decide to go on vacation, why do you think you deserve to go on vacation? So, I think that's important as well.
Yeah. And I think this extends to kids too. So often you hear about kids who are spoiled rotten because their parents have done well in terms of where they work and how much money that they're bringing in each year. They live in, nice houses in great parts of town and that kind of thing. And the kids have no appreciation for how hard their parent had to work, how much drama at work their parent had to endure in order to get to that place where they are. And the kids have this expectation that they should get a certain amount in terms of allowance, or that they should be given a car, and their car has to be a certain type of car because their parents, are in a particular tax bracket. And so I think that we have to make sure that we are, from a young age, ensuring that our kids are appreciative of having the basics. I remember someone telling me recently that their child didn't even know that they were balling out because the husband and wife lived modestly because they wanted to raise children who were well-rounded and could operate in any space and didn't have a sense of entitlement. And so, imagine what our communities would look like if our young people, because even the ones whose parents ain't balling are
spoiled,
usually entitled right now, right? So imagine what our community and what these young people who grow up to be parents would be like as parents if they didn't grow up with this sense of entitlement, or feeling like they have to floss everywhere.
I've heard a number of children be like, we have the money, why can't we do it? And sometimes parents will respond, no, I have money. But sometimes it's the pressure from the kids to, I guess all of us put pressure as kids on our parents. We wanted the latest and greatest, but like you said, sometimes we have to instill like, no, you can't do it. So
can't do it.
Good talk.
Sorry.
Good talk.
Yes, this has been an amazing conversation today.
It has been amazing. I think we probably should end our herbal tea there.
All right, fams. One more thing. Since it is Black History Month, we're going all in.
Black Month. Sorry, I keep interrupting you, but that's how
it's appropriate. It's all good. So on February 22nd, mark that day on your calendars, 2/22. It is National Cook a Sweet Potato Day. And I had to bring this in because sweet potatoes are my favorite food. I love everything sweet potato pie, sweet potato casserole, sweet potato biscuits, sweet potato waffles. Like, it don't even matter. Like, I know there is a such thing as a sweet potato biscuit. And a plug to the Sweet Potato Cafe in Stone Mountain Village. So of course that is my favorite restaurant, but you all make sure that you are cooking a sweet potato on February 22nd because it is National Cook a Sweet Potato Day. Thank you to George Washington Carver, another Black history great who encouraged poor farmers in Alabama to make sure that they were growing crops like peanuts and sweet potatoes as a source of their own food and to make sure that they were living healthily. So yeah, sweet potatoes on February 22nd. Don't forget. Anything else, T?
Oh, I do want to give myself a plug. If you need counseling because you're a stressed out caregiver, I actually do Christian counseling. So please hit us up on our website, our email, all the things if you would like to have a consultation for counseling.
There we go. All right, fam, that's it for today. We've covered a lot of ground. And next week, we're talking about National Cancer Prevention Month.
That's going to be a good one as well. We hope you're going to have questions and comments. Send us an email or a voice note to us at podcast@enjoylifemoreabundantly.com or visit enjoylifemoreabundantly.com/podcast to text us your questions or comments. We really do want to hear from y'all. Y'all been quiet, but come on, hit us up.
All right. If this conversation helped you, like it and share it with someone you love and make sure that you are subscribing so that you don't miss an episode. So until next week,
enjoy life
and life more abundantly. Cheers!
Can I go back?